If you're interested in visiting Machu Picchu, this is the only video you need to watch, as in this video I will explain from start to finish how to do it the adventurous way and how to do it in not so adventurous way if that's your preference. I personally did it the adventurous way, and I'm going to tell you everything about how many days I spent, how I booked, how to get acclimated to the weather, which is actually really important, and everything you need to know to prepare yourself before you take on Cusco, which is one of the highest cities in the world. To start off, I will highly recommend to book with a tour company, as it makes your life much easier. I personally booked it with Machu Picchu reservations, and I highly recommend them. So you will have the choice of picking between the Inca Trail and the Salkantay Trail. I will also drop the link of the tour company in the description if anybody's interested. This is not an ad or a sponsored ad. I just used them and I think they did just fine. You have a choice of picking between the Inca Trail and the Salkantay Trail. The Inca Trail, as far as like what I've heard, is actually more popular. And I also heard it's a little bit easier than the Salkantay Trail and might be a little bit more scenic, but it usually gets sold out way earlier than the Salkantay Trek. But Salkantay is definitely a little bit more tougher because you elevate much higher compared to what you would on Inca Trail. So that's the first thing you want to decide which trail you want to do. I wanted the harder one regardless, so I went for the Salkantay Trek. Keep in mind, even the Salkantay, like they fill up very fast, especially if it's like the high season. So me personally, I would say if you want to go in the high season, you want to book at least like 2 to 3 months ahead of time. I went in May and I had everything booked by end of March. And so when it comes to cost, as right now, I went to the website. It starts off at $290 for the 4-day tour. They also have an option of a 5-day tour where, like, I think it includes another hot spring. But I did the 4 days, so that's all I'm gonna like tell you about. The $290, it includes like food, accommodation, and transportation. I would also recommend to pay additional for the hiking sticks. I think you also have to pay like 10 or 12 bucks additional for the sleeping bags, which I would recommend, because if you want to bring your own, that's up to you, but you would have to carry those with you. So all in all, and you also want to keep in mind the $35 fee to enter Machu Picchu on day 4 isn't included in this price, so that's additional. So all in all, I would say around like $350 when you include all the add. This is around how much I paid. Alright, so how to get there? First off, you want to take a flight into Cusco because there's no other way to get to Cusco by road. And most likely, if you're traveling internationally, you're probably gonna get off in Lima, which is the capital. Stay there, spend a day or two. I would personally recommend it. I stayed there for 2 days and I booked a tour. I went to restaurants. So I would say Lima is definitely worth it. After that, I catch a flight to Cusco, which is about like a 2-hour flight. The first biggest challenge you're gonna have as soon as you land in Cusco is the motion sickness. Because you got to remember that Cusco is over 11,000 feet or 3,400 meters above sea level, and it is very common for people to feel some sort of motion sickness. Like some people have it worse than the others. So it's recommended to go to the pharmacy as soon as you land in Cusco and ask them to give you some motion sickness meds. People in Cusco, they would also recommend you to drink cocoa tea, and it's pretty much just some warm water with cocoa leaves in there. You can also chew cocoa leaves, and they are very readily available all over Cusco, and it's fairly cheap. I waited 2 days before I started my trek, and it still wasn't enough because on the first day I was feeling really sick and I had a headache, and there were some people who were in Cusco for about like a week or so, and they were just fine. So if you have time, make sure you spend as much time in Cusco. There's a lot to do in Cusco if you go in the main center. So like you won't be bored in Cusco, but definitely spend like more than 2 days if you can, and drink a lot of cocoa tea and chew a lot of cocoa leaves. Okay, so right now you're all ready, like you're checked into your hotel, and it's almost time for day one. So day one is going to start really early. The sun won't even be out, and the driver is going to come pick you up from your hotel. The initial journey is about 2 hours, and they'll take you to this place to have some breakfast. Like the breakfast and everything will take about an hour. And then the journey continues towards Sorempampa, which is the first stop. This is pretty much the meeting point for all the horses and the chefs and, you know, all the other staff, which would be like going on the trek with us. So once we meet there, now the hike has officially begun. Our first stop is the Monte Lagoon, where we enjoyed beautiful views of the Humante Lake. We learned a lot about the history of this place, and then just kind of relaxed. After that, we started to hike towards our campsite, which is high up in the mountain and had some breathtaking views. And that was the longest hike you would have for the day. So in total, we covered about 10 kilometers, which is about 6 miles, and we were hiking or trekking for about like 5 to 6 hours. At the end of the hike, like you have some dinner, and then our tour guide informed us that day 2 is the hardest day, where we reach our peak elevation. Day 2, like we were given the option to either get a horse if you feel like we won't be able to do all that like without getting sick, or we can just hike. But if you want to get a horse, we have to tell him like the night before so he can arrange it, because like once you're like in the middle of the hike, you can't, like you don't have the option to just say like, hey, I want a horse now, I feel tired or sick. Now day 2. So day 2, it also begins pretty early, around 5 a.m. We had our breakfast. It was pretty cold in the morning, very cold. And the whole night it was pretty cold. After our breakfast, head out and our hike from Cuswarnio to the trek's highest point, which is the Salkantay Pass, begins. Salkantay Pass, it sits above 4,700 meters above sea level. And it was fairly early in the morning and visibility was pretty bad, really cold, but I was feeling much better than last night, and it was a good sign. If I go through day 2 without passing out or feeling like crap, I think next couple of days would be okay. This one was pretty tough, as you're constantly doing uphill walks, 3.5 to 4 hours, steady pace after making some small stops here and there. And I was pretty surprised that I didn't make as many stops, and I was okay. I finally reached the Salkantay Pass, and views over there were amazing. And you can see the snow-covered mountains. Just spent about 30 to 45 minutes, and it was finally time to descend. This was fairly easier. It was almost all downhill. And now we're just going to our lunch spot, which was in Rakmache. After lunch, we hiked for another 2.5 to 3 hours, and this one was a little steeper than the one we did before lunch, but still, not as bad as the one we did in the morning. This was the final hike of the day. We arrived at our campsite at Chale. And this is where we were going to sleep for the night. So in total, this was the busiest and longest day and toughest day, because we hiked for about 22 kilometers, which is about 14 miles. And the total time you spend in hiking is about, give or take 9 to 10 hours. Be prepared for day 2. And also keep in mind that the temperature, it changes drastically, because I went from wearing a jacket in the morning to just wearing a t-shirt in the afternoon. All right, so day 3. We're halfway done, and now starts day 3, where we woke up pretty early in the morning. Around 5:30, we had our breakfast, and by, 6:30 to 7, we were out. And most of the hike for day 3 it's gonna be flat terrain around the Santa Teresa Valley. The first stop was in Locamba, where we stopped for a coffee tour. Over there, also had a chance to make coffee.
Oh, yeah, that was amazing. Let me put that. Yeah, like a little.
The traditional way, and we also get to some coffee. After that, you also have the option to buy some coffee and support the local shops.
Coffee sounds
Okay, that's a little strong. After that, our journey to our last campsite, which is in the town of Aguascalientes. A car to our lunch site. It was about like a 1.5 hour like car ride to Hydroelectrica. That's the place where we had our lunch. We began our final 3-hour trek to the town of Aguascalientes. Hike was fairly simple. Walk along the railway line. So once you arrive in Aguascalientes, we had a nice dinner. But I would also recommend taking this time you have in Aguascalientes to explore the town. There are a lot of food options, shopping, cafes, ice cream. There's a lot of souvenirs you can buy. It's a pretty cool town, and it's fairly busy because there's a lot of people here because this is the closest you can stay if you want to visit on Machu Picchu. So as I was saying, if you want to come here the non-adventurous way, all those people, they come into Aguascalientes and they're staying here. Now, day 4, the final day. Day 4, same as all the other 3 days. You wake up pretty early in the morning. So you have 2 options to get to Machu Picchu. You can either take the shuttle bus, which is about, I think it was $35 round trip. And that bus will take you all the way up and it will bring you all the way down. If you don't want to take that, you also have the option to hike about hour to hour and a half. But I thought, I did a lot of hike and I didn't use a horse at all, so I deserve to just take the shuttle. We got on the bus. The line is pretty long, but it moves pretty fast because it's not just one bus. There's a lot of buses that keep coming, so the goal is to get there as early as possible. And once we got on the bus, 20 minutes to go all the way up, and those roads are not public roads. They're not used by anything else. Those roads are only used by the buses to take all the tourists up to Machu Picchu. Once we got to the top, we looked for our tour guide. He was there, and then we finally went in Machu Picchu. I will make a separate video about Machu Picchu by itself. I went over the entire process on how to get there because it's a lot to digest. Make sure you stay organized, you stay on top in order to have a good trip. If you like this video and you want to see more travel content, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you and goodbye.